Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight. There's no theory on any of my content at all, you guys. I only speak to transportation professionals on here because I want to put information out there that you can all apply, utilize, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. This is what it's all about, you guys. There's no theory on any of my shit. And it's also one of the many reasons why I proudly fly this American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth. But B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you guys live yours as well. I got a guest. It was kind of last minute. Last night, he agreed to come on and talk about, transparency. Do brokers really make too much money? What the fuck does this ruling even mean? Has this been in effect? And where are we going to go from here in all of this? And I'm going to bring him up here in a second. But before I do any of that, you guys, as always, I got to give a shout out to my friends over at VHub, vhubapp.com. Talk about a great way to make additional revenue right now in this current freight market, because you get paid to move these trailers for them. That's right. That's on top of the revenue that you can get by loading these trailers out. And then furthermore, if you want to add value to an enterprise shipper, a lot of these guys need drop trailers. And now you can do that on VHub, you guys, because they have these trailers down in Paragould, Arkansas, needing to go up to Mississauga, Ontario. And they don't have to load in Paragould. You can grab them, reposition them over to Nashville, and deliver them into Hamilton. They just have to be dropped in Mississauga is where they end up at. And then they also have Stoughton, Wisconsin, going to Milton, Ontario, and you get 1,000 Canadian to do that. And then they have Paragould, Arkansas, going down to Irving, Texas. You get 550 US. And then they also have San Diego, California, going out to Laredo, Texas, and you get 700 US to move those. So hit them up, you guys, vhubapp.com. My man Xavier Campos and Stacy Steen, they'll be in the audience. Just do me a favor, let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Louis, Montana, what is up? Good morning. Keep rolling forward. Vitaly Becker, he's up there in the GTA. He's in Toronto. He could probably use some drive-ins, right, babe? April Maroney, what's up? Good morning. Let's get that business. It's been a while since I've seen you. Zach Williams is in the house. Good morning, sir. He's with SPI Logistics, you guys. That's who I have my agency from. If you guys want to become an independent freight agent, hit him up. Join the team. Tracy St. Clair, she's watching over on YouTube, where I also stream live to every single weekday, you guys, as well. Tracy, thanks for joining in. Good evening to you from India, Pranita. And then we got Sunny Sharma in the house. Good fucking morning. David Nelson, freight sucks, but got to keep rolling. David, I always love your absolute honesty. And then Dan Hellman's in the house. He says, good morning. Corey Ritchie, good morning. All right, you guys, I'm going to bring my guest up right now. The best dressed man in freight. Look at that backdrop. Look at that. Just everything fresh. Kyle Lintner, what is up, man?
How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Dude, it's good to see you too. I'm doing well. It's, I haven't been as active on social media from a posting perspective outside of like my podcast and then doing this live show every day, because like this is my content. Like this is my social media activity at this point. Fortunately, my businesses are busy. I'm growing, and I just got to be more aware of how I'm investing my time.
Yeah.
As you know, not all of us can just sit out there all day and bitch and moan all fucking day about everything. And, because that's just kind of what it seems like it's out there now, is it's transitioned back into just straight up negativity all the time.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I'm not the biggest fan of LinkedIn, which might sound a little odd at first, but I regretfully engage with it in my current iteration of life. And as an independent consultant, somehow every single customer, for the most part, comes through LinkedIn. So I have to go on there every so often. Plus, a few weeks ago, I did this whole idea of the freight lint. So I am trying to spend my days doing something good. I spend most of my time talking to people for free during the day. But if there's something I come across I think of value, then I'm going to throw it up on LinkedIn so everybody can see it. And that's a little bit of how my night went last night, only because I don't understand how none of this got talked about or picked up, but it kind of got buried over the weekend. Friday afternoon was this news that you want to talk about?
Yeah, and obviously Kyle and I talk a lot. Kyle's a really good friend of mine, and we, when I saw him, I saw that article and it did get buried, and then I had came across it yesterday afternoon, and then when I saw you throw your posts up there is when I reached out. I'm like, dude, you got to join my live show because I'm going to talk about this, and it's the broker transparency drum that is getting banged at full force right now. And if you remember back in 2020, when this initially happened, the OIDA crew was all over this shit. And then they got eerily silent on this topic for about 18 to 20 months when rates were sky high. There's not a need for transparency in those moments. And then it came back in when rates started to fall again. And now I'm not here to argue that there aren't shitbags out there who are posting ridiculously low rates and really hosing people over in these moments. It happens on both angles, though. Like this isn't something that's new. A free market definitely breeds this type of behavior at times, especially inside of the spot market, where a lot of people kind of fight for the freight. But I must admit, you guys, and I need to put this out there, this actual clause that they're talking about has been in effect since the 80s. Since the 1980s, this has been in effect about this broker transparency and everything else to promote fairness and everything. So it's, I don't ever hide behind the fact that I am not a fan of government overreach on any fucking stance, because I always look at it like this, Kyle, what's going to come after this? Because like, this isn't just going to stop here, right? And I'm not saying that this is all a bad thing per se. I personally think that a lot of people, because they always throw out the 65% or 45% margins that these brokers are apparently making out here. And maybe I just suck, man, but I've never got a fucking 45% margin on a load ever. And I think what this ultimately will prove is there's going to be a lot of upset people out there that when they see how little brokers actually make on the majority of the freight that they move.
Probably, the story of the high margin load gets compounded and turned into a magnifier amount of loads immediately. It happens once. You play telephone and suddenly it's 1,000 times that it happened. I agree, they're small in number. But it's the outliers that affect things the most. For the most part, everything runs on average, and we stuck somewhere between the 12 to 16%. I think now, if you took a look at historically margins for brokers, it's probably lower. It's probably around 10 to 14. You probably shave 2% on the top and bottom. So say somewhere around 14% is your average brokerage margin. That's where overwhelmingly all of this stuff lands, whether it's 10%, 20%, it's somewhere around there. Those 50, 60, 70% margin loads, those do happen. Yes. Those are hotshot team hazmat expedites going transcon kind of a thing. What people don't like to hear, this will sound odd at first, but I have this opinion that and occasionally in instances like that, a freight brokerage is working in an anti-capitalist mentality. And I say that because every single market is a mechanism for price discovery. So the job of any market when supply and demand are out of balance is to alert everybody that supply and demand is out of balance. So when there are not enough trucks in an area that desperately needs the trucks, price is raised as an advertising mechanism to let everyone know to send trucks to that area. If the prices get so high that, and only brokers are seeing that and pocketing the spread between what they're paying carriers to come in there versus what they're receiving from the shippers who are declaring as loud as they can, we need trucks, we will not get the trucks in that area with the speed that we desire. All of that padded margin ends up not allowing trucks to be routed to the market that needs it the most. The most efficient way to get a message from one point to the other is direct, not through an intermediary. And if an intermediary is going to take a larger chunk out of that rate, the net effect is not getting the message to the people that need to hear it the loudest. That's why I care about this. I just want to see the most efficient thing happen. I want to see a true free market operate because the best idea always wins, and that's how we push things forward. But when we have different sets of rules or obfuscated ideas or people operating in shadows, you get inefficiencies, and inefficiencies lead to bad ideas and more problems down the road. I'm sick and tired personally of seeing all of this redundancy and idiocy inside of this industry when the majority of problems can be fixed immediately.
Yeah.
And little things like transparency on rates are one of the things that pushes this stuff forward.
Yeah. And it's, again, I think that the majority of the freight that people think are going to like, oh, we're going to catch these brokers, they're going to be very disappointed from that regard. Very disappointed. I have to stand with the TIA's stance on they have to iron out the fine print, right? Like they have to iron out the access to customer information and stuff that should be out there, even though they know where they're picking up from and everything, because there is like what information should be on there and what shouldn't be on there.
Super easy.
Yeah, no.
It will eliminate all of the customer information, 3-zip to 3-zip in the rate. You don't even need to know with certainty that it was your load. You just need to know what the other loads were running for, right?
Correct. And that's what needs to be, if this is going to be a thing, put out there. But again, I think that people are going to stop caring about this in about 8 months when rates start to increase. I truly feel that way. And then we'll be back.
Yeah, but for the wrong reasons. That's when they should be more interested in it. Everybody now wants to be so concerned. And there's this idea out there that brokers are pocketing all this money or that they're pushing down rates to the carriers. Markets don't work like that.
Yeah.
If you don't want to run the load, don't accept the rate. And that's what happens. That's how you now push price back up higher. Unfortunately, we're in a cycle now of price discovery to the downside. And the job of the market is to weed out all of the inefficient carriers, push the rate to the point where we rebalance supply and demand and we remove the excess capacity. And the removal of that excess capacity is going to happen by pushing rates to a point where the operating costs are not matching the revenues received and they shutter their doors. I hate saying it. It's how you thin the herd. We have to thin the herd right now because too many people showed up when we needed all of those trucks in the middle of COVID and immediately after it. Now we don't. There is nothing wrong about what's happening right now. It might not feel very good for your business if you're one of those people that are going to be eliminated, but so be it. I don't want a plumber to come to my house that doesn't know how to plumb. I don't want a jackass carrier showing up to my dock that doesn't know how to run his business. It's the fact of the matter. It's how every other industry, it's how every other system operates. This is just Darwinism inside of business.
I think that, again, if you are running a legitimate business, like you're going to be fine, whether you're a carrier, broker, exactly. It doesn't matter. I personally think, because again, I always try and look at it from every angle, like I'm really working towards removing my emotions from my opinions on a lot of things because my real emotions.
That puts you in the 1% of LinkedIn, by the way.
I know. And it's really tough, man, because naturally I want to go out there and start motherfucking people, but I'm trying to see like, all right, if this actually goes into effect, which again, it might for a couple of months, and then it's going to be off to the wayside when rates improve, because that's just, if you follow human nature. My personal opinion on this is with OIDA, they're banging their drum to rile up their base to get more people to sign up. And then they'll go quiet when rates increase. And then they'll come back to this to bang that drum to get, I think, again, follow the money, right? Like always follow the money, because you're right, Kyle, when rates were $7 a mile or $8 a mile, that's when they should have been really fighting for this. They should have been really fighting for this at that time, but that didn't happen. And you got to ask yourself why in those instances. Why did they stop doing it? I'll tell you why. Because most of these organizations' membership dues are based off of revenue. And when revenue is up for their members, their dues are up. Therefore, they're making a fuckload of money. They don't give a shit, right? Like, why advocate for something that's not a problem when you're making money? And history will always go in line with that, because if they really cared about that owner op, I'm going to be honest, and OIDA, you can come at me. Don't give a fuck about this, because if you really cared about that owner op, and I'm speaking from experience here because my family is filled with owner ops, why aren't you fucking advocating for them in the markets when you should be? Why aren't you advocating for them on issues that actually affect them? Because they have an awesome opportunity right now to join up with the TIA and fight the double brokering shit, which I feel like is the greatest thing to this industry. Because how are you going to get rate transparency if a load's been double brokered? Because the funny thing about criminals is they don't give a fuck what the law is, regardless of what it is, And I think like that's the big underlying issue here is like we collectively as an industry, we need to attack this where it's like, again, hey, you want to see the rates? You want to see all this transparency? You're going to be very fucking pissed off when you see that I'm running freight at 10 or 12% margin. You're going to be very upset by that. Again, there's those outliers. There's those outliers in everything, where that happens. But I think like the transparency thing, if you're going to fight for it, you better fight for it when your team or the owner ops or the fleets are making a lot of money. You got to fight for it at all times. Don't just do it because I just like, what's your motive there? What's your real motive there? Are you really going to protect your people? Because if you are, why aren't you fighting for lower insurance premiums? Why aren't you working with the FMCSA to weed out these individuals that have shitty care safety ratings and everything? And then, hold on one second. Can you see me still, Kyle?
Yeah.
Okay. My screen, I hadn't moved my screen, so it shut down on me. But why aren't we really fighting against the core issues that are rising insurance costs and everything else, right? And I think that those are in fraud and in all of those stuff, because I think like those are where the real things that are going to affect them. Because again, man, in a couple of months, and Kyle, you know this as well as anybody, you've studied freight markets for a while now. The markets are going to improve. The rates are going to improve. And then, human nature, people are going to stop caring about this issue then. But rising insurance costs, unsafe drive, like all of those safety things, that is going to be constantly overlooked.
Yeah. I think people should care more when the rates are higher. Although the reason it's probably picking up steam right now is the gap between spot and contract is at its widest ever. So just from a numbers standpoint, freight brokerage margin has never had a greater percentage difference between those two rates than ever. Right now, if you're a broker and you're a good broker, you're running contract business, and when you purchase capacity to fulfill that contract business, you're buying it on the spot market, you're making the most amount of money between those two rates that you ever had. That doesn't include anything going on spot. I'm talking about brokers that run contract, which are the ones that are going to be the overwhelming majority of any of these rates that come out. People always forget about that. But when we get to the biggest of the big, which are so much larger than everybody else, with the freight brokerages that operate the billions of revenue every year, those guys are 70+% contractual business.
Yeah.
They're not messing around the spot. The one-offs that go for, $3,000 in profit or 80% over the actual paid rate, those are all in the hands of the independent agent that's got, 1 or 2 loads a day. Yeah. He's throwing crap at the wall and it sticks, and then it goes up on DAT. That's it.
I would like to see, Kyle, because again, it's like if I'm thinking, removing my emotions from a lot of this, if I was an owner op and say I was leased on to a trucking company, right? What kind of operating agreement do you have with the trucking company that's in place? Are they taking too much money? Again, and then where does this rate transparency come into that play?
That's another area that it can go. Yeah.
And that's what it is. And then personally, I think, again, looking at this from who is this going to really affect the most? Dispatch companies. The dispatch companies that are out there, any one of them that are actually brokering freight, because y'all are doing it in certain situations. I'm on social media because for some reason, people think when I post on social media, it's just like no one's going to fucking notice it, right? Like for some reason. And I think that's who it's going to affect the most. And then what will happen from there is it's like if you're going to be a dispatch company, you will now have to register with the FMCSA. You will have to have a DOT. There'll probably be because again, they're looking at this from a money game, right? Like where can they increase signups on the FMCSA? There's going to be a, fucking MC number that ends with the letter D or something. So it shows that they're dispatched, they're registered, they're going to be required to, that's where it will go. Right. That's where it's going to eventually bleed into, because I personally think that same thing. If I'm an owner op, what am I really paying? Right. Like, am I really getting every dollar from the company I'm leased onto? Or if they're a complete independent contractor where they are out there, they own their own truck, their own trailer, the most successful companies that operate in that efficiency are going direct to shippers. All of them that I talk to have direct relationships with shippers who have been in it in time, and they don't have to deal with a lot of these situations. But I personally think, though, that this is just one of those things that in due time, it's going to go to the wayside. And what will happen is, I think a lot of people are going to, they're going to fight for these rates to see what brokers are making. And then they're going to get pissed off after like the 5th or 6th one that shows that the broker made $100 or $10 or whatever. And then they're going to be like, all right, fuck it. I'm not going to go through with it because of whatever.
If it stays the way it is, it doesn't go anywhere. I
don't
think it's going to stay the way it is, because
really
somebody like Dreamy Dan Hellman's going to develop the software. And it's not difficult, but all you need is the software that allows for the digital automated process of requesting the rate and then aggregating that rate. The key on all of this is going to be the decision. There's a petition out there to make the window on this 48 hours. So now it's tangible. If in 2 days I get to see what the rate was, now you can actually match what you were doing to the load, right? At that point, everybody's interested, because now you get to see all of that. And now, we were talking about carriers being removed from the network because there's an excess of it. We're removing the poorly run carriers. The same thing is going to happen with the brokers.
Oh, for sure.
The shitheads are going to leave. That's it. So at the end of the day, nobody even really cares about it. We're not removing any capacity anyway. We're just removing the conduit between the two. And if there are brokers that require 60% margins to operate, well, those aren't very efficient brokers. We should get rid of them anyway. Where this gets super interesting, and why I think this sticks around longer than most, if you're a shipper, aren't you interested in this? Do you not want to see what your brokers are actually paying for that freight that you're giving them $6,000 for, and they're covering it at $4,000? That's $2,000 back in your pocket. And I can tell you right now with absolute certainty, because I've been a part of this, there are shippers out there who go to the same DAT that you go to, request the same information that you do. They match their entire year's history of load and what they paid against the DAT data. They take anything that's beyond 20% from average. They send those loads to their providers and say, we need an explanation on these. Those people come back with it was 7 o'clock on a Friday and my dog died routine, whatever it is. Yeah. Okay, move along. We now know, but we've seen what this is. The exact same process is going to happen now. The shipper requests the data or tells their providers, look, if you want to run our freight, we request that you participate in this program. And everybody thinks now that'll never happen, or no, you can't roll it out. Really? Let's stop and think about what Walmart did about on-time deliveries. Oh, that can't be done, right? What did everybody do? You fell in line, you moved Walmart's freight, and now it's no big deal. Don't tell me that it can't be done. Don't tell me that you can't do it. And don't tell me that people aren't interested in it. Because if I'm running a Fortune 50 CPG company, I want to know what I'm paying on all of my spot loads that I send to 3PLs, because they don't have the asset. So what really am I paying for? Let me see. And for everybody who wants to throw out there, oh, you're buying service and you're buying value, those are fucking table stakes at this point. There are technologies that do everything that you do. I don't need the check call every hour. I have GPS tracking. I don't need your white gloves attached to this trailer. You better be doing that on every load anyway. But there's none of the stuff that you bring to the table is anything. You are an intermediary. And if you're not providing the service of matching me with the one-off owner app that I won't allow to onboard, then you're not doing anything for me.
Yeah, it's yeah, man, it's truly going to be interesting. I think that there are some positives that can literally come out of this. I think that to the brokers that are out there doing the right thing, right, that aren't gouging, and you all fucking know what I'm talking about here, all right? I'm just as guilty of it as everyone is in certain scenarios. But if you're looking at a customer retention standpoint, and I know everyone's going to fucking say, oh, there's no loyalty. Have you done enough to create loyalty? That's what it is the fact of the matter is this, is if this goes out into full effect, which again, my personal stance is in a couple of months, it's all going to fucking go away. Somebody might in about 2 years come up with something, because I think it's going to take a little bit of time to build up the software, troubleshoot it and everything. Maybe the next time the market comes back to what it is right now, Kyle, there'll be a solution for it. I think it's going to be a little bit. And I understand, I see the comments, you guys. Sean, I saw your comment about the losses that are out there. And same, I get all of that.
Don't care. Don't run the load. Give it back to your customer. Yeah. Or pick a different business model that allows for that. Don't care. There are other brokers doing the same thing and not crying about it. You want to play that game? Don't bitch.
Yeah, it's shitty. I don't think anybody enjoys losing money on it. But there are certain situations now where it's part of it. But again, it's like, what can you do in your business, right? And that's what you have to look at, because winners, like, this isn't I'm not trying to sound like a fucking motivational poster, but winners are going to fucking win in this. It doesn't matter what rules come into effect or anything like that. Winners are going to fucking win from this, because my strategy is very simple. My strategy, knowing how brokerage works, is about volume, right? I make my money in volume. I make my money in pairing up with the same carriers. And I get it. Everyone's like, oh, it is fucking possible. All right. It is fucking possible. I know it because I've moved 3 truckloads in my career and I've done it. I'm being completely fucking sarcastic with
3
that
different
statement.
broker or carriers, though, right?
But my thing is there's going to be a solution here. Now you can look at this and say, my world's over. Everything's going to go wrong. Yada, yada, yada. And do nothing. Or you can take it as, all right, how do I figure it out? How do I get ahead of all of my competition who are going to wait to the last fucking minute on this? And I'm going to be the motherfucker that gobbles up market share with all of this. Because again, I'm not going to tell anybody to not make money. Make your fucking money. There are some very specialized freight out there that justify a higher margin percentage.
Yep.
If you're out there organizing cranes, if you're out there organizing more than quoting a load, posting it up, and finding a truck, yeah, you do deserve to make a little bit of money, because those carriers are making a fuckload of money to move that freight, right, at the end of the day. But if you're talking commoditized drive-in, reefer freight and stuff out there, because that's a lot of what they're talking about here at the end of the day. And that's where a lot of this, all the data is very clear on what rates are moving for. If you think you're going to go in and bid an RFP in this market for a drive-in or a refrigerated freight customer and put your fucking margins at 18%, you won't even fucking be able to submit it. They're going to laugh at you. You'll get kicked out immediately, right? You're going to sit at about 10 to 12%. And again, and this is where my gut goes with a lot of this, Kyle. After some of these drivers and some of these trucking companies and OIDA sees that 75, 80, 85% of the tenders show that brokers make about 10 to 12%, they're going to stop talking about it. They're going to stop talking about it because there's nothing to talk about, because they're like, fuck, okay, those talking points that were unsubstantiated about 65% margins don't exist. We have nothing to stand on. Let's go away. Let's get silent on it so they don't come back, because that's the problem, or like with lobbying, right? Is there will be something that they will fight for on the opposite side of the aisle that will swing the pendulum back, right? That's where it'll eventually go. But I think what will happen, this is just my gut telling me this, after enough tenders come through that show little to no margins for some of these brokers, they're going to get very fucking quiet on it, and they're going to hope it goes away.
Well, that's why so much of this doesn't even matter. That's exactly what's going to happen. The overwhelming majority of this is going to be a moot point. All that's going to stick out are those anomalies and all the egregious behavior. That's what we're trying to get rid of anyway. That's why this doesn't matter. Everybody that wants to throw up their hands and think this is going to become some sort of a witch hunt, it's not. The amount of actual businesses that are going to exit because of this is so small, but that's a positive for everybody. Do we really want that broker who maybe does 1 load a day and his whole thing is, well, my shipper requested a quote, so I had to give it to him, and then I threw it up on DAT, and I needed to do it at a rate that I knew I wouldn't lose any money for? Like, the one-offs don't matter. No one cares about that.
Yeah.
And if that's what we're getting rid of by putting the transparency, so be it.
Yeah. And
all this does is validate every other broker that's doing what they're supposed to. What you already said, if you have a dedicated carrier, right? You took the shipper's business, you went and found the carrier for it. Great. That's what you're supposed to do. You earn a fee for doing that. Nobody's going to argue with that. You did provide the service of matching 2 parties that didn't know each other. This is to get rid of the jackass that throws up $59.99 on whatever you ask him for a quote for, and then puts it on DAT for $4,000.
Yeah. I personally think that the brokers and the carriers that are out there are doing the right thing. Again, I'm not a fan of fucking government overreach at all, but this will put more freight in your guys' P&Ls at the end of the day. I think it could. Again, I hate the language behind it. They got to clear up some of this shit.
Yep.
I already put my points out there. Kyle's got a hard stop here, you guys, so I have to end this call right now. But Kyle's always going to come back on because you guys want to see his bright, shining face. But that's it for today, you guys. The Freight Coach Morning Show. We are the top morning show in transportation. If you guys saw value, subscribe and share the show. Rank this show. Get it out there, you guys, because if you see value, your network's going to see value in it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.